Well, a new study suggests a 20-year decline in the number of Americans identifying as Christian may be leveling off. According to a Pew Research survey, 62% of U.S. adults identify as Christian, a number that has been relatively stable since 2019, while still lower than 2007. The survey also shows that the Catholic share of Christian respondents has been stable since 2014. And joining us now to discuss this and more is Greg Smith, Senior Associate Director of Research at the Pew Research Center. So wonderful to see you again, Greg. So walk us through some of the main findings from this survey.
It's really interesting. If you look at trends in American religion over the long term trends show a picture of decline in religion, including a downturn in the share of Americans who describe themselves as Christians. That's the long term. The shorter term picture is very different. Over the last 4 or 5 years or so, the survey and other surveys we've conducted suggest we've been in a period of stability. The Christian share of the population has stabilized after declining for a long time, and the share of the population who says they have no religion has plateaued after growing for a very long time. So the key picture that emerges is one of stability amid a longer period of decline.
Greg, do we know the reasoning for this?
Well, we know that over the long term, a big part of what's driven the declines in American religion is generational replacement. You've had younger Americans come of age with lower levels of attachment to religion than their parents and grandparents before them. That's what's driven some of the long-term declines. And each age group, each birth cohort, if you will, has become less religious as they've aged. But in the short term, those two things are a little different. Each birth cohort has shown signs of religious stability over the last 4 or 5 years, and the youngest Americans aren't actually too much less religious than the second youngest Americans. So they're not tugging down on the nation's overall religiousness as might have been the case.
Greg, what about Catholics specifically? How do those numbers look, and have they remained stable?
The Catholic share of the population has been pretty stable for the better part of a decade now. About 1 in 5 Americans describe themselves as Catholics. That's a little lower than when we first conducted a big study like this back in 2007, but it's been pretty steady for the better part of a decade now.
Yeah, and what do you think these numbers indicate, for the future and the religious landscape in the U.S.?
That's an important question. Is the new stability in American religion likely to be a permanent feature of the American religious landscape? We don't know the answer for sure, but we do know that it's inevitable that older generations of Americans will decline as a share of the population as their members age and pass away. And we know that people coming up behind them are way less religious than older Americans. So unless something changes, unless today's young adults become a lot more religious as they get older, or unless new generations of young adults come of age with higher levels of religiousness than today's young adults, then we might see a resumption of the long-term declines we've seen in American religion.
All right, very interesting findings there. Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.